Once upon a time, at Christmas a long time ago, you could still see poor people walking around on the streets. At that time it wasn't shameful to be poor, so ragamuffins and lost souls didn't have to stay out of people's sight, but could walk around anywhere they wanted to. When the Christmas that this story is about was approaching, there was as usual a lot of baking and sausage making, dusting and polishing, rummaging and wrapping, and a mad increase in business that made the rich businessmen even richer, and the poor customers even poorer. In one of the post offices in the capital of the country stood Karl-Bertil Jonsson, sorting incoming packages. Karl-Bertil Jonsson was 14 years old and went to school, but as we said, right now he was standing sorting incoming packages. During the days just before Christmas, the post office hired school children to work all night, since the regular personnel quit work at 5. Now, maybe you feel sorry for Karl-Bertil Jonsson because he had to stand there all night sorting incoming packages. But believe me, there's no reason to feel sorry for Karl-Bertil Jonsson. He came from a well-to-do home. His father had a department store and got richer every day selling table runners and sparklers. But anyway, Karl-Bertil thought it was fun to earn a little money himself. While Karl-Bertil Jonsson stood throwing packages labeled glass, handled with care, on the stone floor of the fragile room, he thought of Robin Hood. Robin Hood was Karl-Bertil Jonsson's idol, for this was the time when a 14-year-old's idolatry didn't necessarily have to be of a sexual nature. Heroism, comradeship, fat monks who fought in the fear of God with staffs for a just cause, healthy outdoor life, virtuous virgins to help across streams and rivers, reverence for the legal king. Those were some of the things which seemed to Karl-Bertil Jonsson to be the best life had to offer. And of course, the principle of lawless justice, take from the rich and give to the poor. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Karl-Bertil Jonsson, with a sigh of relief, broke the last crystal vase wrapped up in cardboard against the concrete wall of the Royal Post Office and went home through the empty streets. His steps echoed against the walls of the houses, to take from the rich and give to the poor. Christmas was near. These unfortunate people for whom the Salvation Army's pots are kept boiling. Goodwill to men. The Christmas candles are lit again. Who lights a candle for those who wander in the dark, dancing around the Christmas tree? Sha-la-la, a time of joy. Cold shines the star of Christmas on those who have no home, to take from the rich and give to the poor.
To take from the rich and give to the poor.
It was then that Karl-Bertil Jonsson made his decision. At 12:30 the next day, Karl-Bertil was wakened by his loving mother. He got up, ate his 2 fried eggs and sausage, sneaked into his father's library and swiped his directory of tax assessments, and left for the post office. He began to sort incoming packages with the somnambulistic sureness of a child who has learned something word for word. But his eye checked on the addressee of every package. It was particularly the title before the name of the addressee that interested him. Titles like lathe turner, construction worker, nurse's aide, herr, seamstress. Titles like this he let go onto their respective piles of packages. But when he found an addressee with the title director, he allowed the director's package to slip down into a special sack that he had beside him. That was also the place where packages ended up that were addressed to, for example, civil engineers, colonels' wives, bankers, mine owners, and real estate brokers.
To take from the rich and give to the poor.
At dinner time, the sack at his foot was well filled with packages. He stayed behind when the others went out to eat, and as soon as he was alone, he took out the Directory of Tax Assessments and started checking the packages in his special sack.
Bureau Director H.K. Bergdahl, assessed for 67,500 kronor.
Bergdahl went back into the special sack. So did all the other packages whose addressees earned more than 50,000 kronor a year. Even a package to his own father from Aunt Märta ended up in this quite special sack. No favoritism, equality for everyone. Now the sack was full to the top. Karl-Bertil tied up the sack, fastened one of the post office address cards to the string, wrote his own name and address on the card, and pulled the sack out to the big pile of sacks which were to be taken out into the town the next day. The next day was Christmas Eve. Karl-Bertil Jonsson was wakened at 12 o'clock by his loving mother, who stood beside the bed with sparklers in her hair and a tray with coffee and ginger piggies in her hands, and said,
Karl-Bertil, there's a whole bag full of parcels for you.
They're the ones I've got to get sorted. Homework, you know.
Oh, my poor boy. Do you have to work and slave on Christmas Eve, too?
One has to do one's duty in life, you see, Mother.
said Karl-Bertil.
A job well done gives inner satisfaction and is the foundation on which society is built.
Karl-Bertil's loving mother looked at her boy, moved and proud.
My dear little boy.
Karl-Bertil went down to the hall where the sack stood, dragged it into his father's library and emptied it on the floor. He sat down at his father's desk and took a book of gummed labels of the type his mother used on her homemade jam jars. On each label he wrote in red ink,
Merry Christmas from an unknown benefactor.
He stuck the labels on top of the addressees' names on all the packages. He covered the sender's name and address with a Christmas star of gilt paper. The living room was already filled with the Christmas spirit. Christmas songs came from the radio. Other Christmas songs came from the television set. Everyone was good and kind to the depths of their being. In short, Christmas had come.
The merriest of Christmases to you, my good boy. Would you like to sniff the spiced wine, son?
The tree is dressed now. Come here, Tico, and put the star on top.
Look, isn't it beautiful?
This was Father's big job at Christmas, fastening at the top of the tree the big glittering star, which cost 14 kronor and 50 öre, which he had taken home free from his department store. With sounds of celebration, the family ate its Christmas Eve dinner. After dinner, Karl-Bertil said,
Excuse me, I must get started on my mailbag.
But poor boy, I can take the car and drive you
said
around.
Father.
Absolutely out of the question, Tico. You've had spiced wine.
Karl-Bertil drew a sigh of relief.
Well, take this for a taxi then.
Said Father, who had softened up with a drink.
Thank you, dear father.
Said Karl-Bertil. He ordered a taxi, went down in the cellar where his father kept his Santa Claus suit, took it with him, dragged the sack out to the taxi and said to the driver,
Take me to the slum quarters.
The driver looked suspiciously in the mirror as if he were driving a thief. But Karl-Bertil's proper exterior and honest face reassured him, and he drove him to the dirty slum district that existed in the capital at the time this story took place. When Karl-Bertil had paid the taxi, he went into a doorway and put on his father's somewhat too large Santa Claus suit. Then he went out on his humanitarian Christmas sojourn.
Have you got any good children at home?
Huh?
Take this parcel and go straight home to your poor family. Merry Christmas.
Karl-Bertil happily continued to light up the shady side of humanity with his little sparks of friendliness. He knocked on the rottenest doors, approached the most ragged streetwalkers, talked to the loneliest aged people, and placed packages among the bottles in front of the saddest day workers at the beer hall.
Soon it will be Christmas, Christmas is soon here. Roll the dark and blustery back to us so dear. Slowly unroll those families with their kin, and it's only best clothes all the kids come in.
For Karl-Bertil, the rest of Christmas Eve passed in an atmosphere of inner joy, a feeling which good deeds give to those who do them. And when everyone had got his presents, Christmas Eve ebbed away in that mutual feeling of devoutness which only an old movie on television can give people.
Jo, det skulle alls smaka det i ett nunnekloster. Se inte så rädd ut, jag ska inte äta upp.
In the midst of the movie, the telephone...
Oh, hello, Auntie Matta. Merry Christmas. What? A hand-painted china plate? No. No, we haven't received a hand-painted china plate. What's that? With a flower motif? Carnations in a pot? No, I'm sorry, Auntie Matta, but we didn't... Yes? Yes, do that, Auntie Matta. Goodbye. Take care of yourself.
Tico? Tico, can you hear me? Auntie Matta sent us a lovely hand-painted china
Oh,
plate.
thank heavens that it didn't get here. Quiet! I'm watching television.
But Tico, she hung up on me. She was going to phone the Director General of the Post Office Department.
Poor man, most probably he's also watching television. Be quiet.
Oh, dear me. How can it have got lost? Can you understand it? Karl-Bertil, you work at the post office.
During a fraction of a second, Karl-Bertil went through an emotional crisis. Lie to his mother on Christmas Eve? No. Resolutely tell the truth? Yes.
I put the parcel aside and gave it to someone poor.
Said Karl-Bertil. Father started and tore himself away from the television screen.
What did I hear you said you did?
I gave Auntie China plate to someone poor.
Have you gone mad, boy? What?
I've taken a lot of other parcels from rich people and given them to poor people.
What? I've harbored a communist in my breast?
Jonsson was one of those who think that anyone who voluntarily gives anything away is a communist.
But, Father, you said yourself you didn't want on this plate.
Said? It was my plate. What do you think all the others will say? Who else have you stolen from besides me?
They are ticked off in your book of tax assessments.
I don't believe this. Don't you see what you've done? You can go to an institution for this.
I'm prepared to take the consequences, Father. I've given a little joy to those poor people who don't own a department store. That's what I've done.
Tycho Jonsson was almost strangled by his Christmas anger.
Boy, you're going to come around with me to all of those people you've stolen from and tell them you are sorry. Off to bed. You can't see the end of the picture.
Karl-Bertil went to bed. He had already read in the papers how the movie ended. He went to sleep and dreamed that he was sleeping under the open sky in Sherwood Forest. Let us now stop a moment and ask a few questions. Wouldn't Karl-Bertil's cruel father's heart have softened if he had seen with his own eyes the joy that his son spread at the bottom rungs of society's ladder? If he had seen the streetwalker Beda Larsson press her striped silk tie to her breast this Christmas night, wouldn't his eyes have softened? Could he have remained angry if he had caught a glimpse of the home of indigent Harald Ljungström, where the children were playing happily with their 6 Japanese napkin rings of pear tree wood? And how could he have remained indignant if he had been present when the lonely widow Lisbeth Blomqvist opened her package and with tears in her eyes found a bottle of aftershave lotion? Such questions we'll never know the answer to. Tycho Jonsson fell asleep this Christmas night in anger. Not even the joyful message of the early morning television church service about peace on earth and goodwill among men could make Tycho Jonsson's disposition any more charitable. He was a man of justice who didn't want to be mixed up with any thievery. Later that day, he took his directory of tax assessments and his son and went on a pilgrimage to a number of people with incomes of more than 50,000 kronor a year. Bureau Director Bergdahl had a mahogany door and a maid.
May we speak to the bureau director? It's about a Christmas gift.
They were shown into a parlor where Bureau Director Bergdahl was inaugurating the billiard table he had given his mother for a Christmas present.
Good afternoon. Well, the thing is, my son has given away one of your Christmas presents to someone poor.
I want to say I'm sorry, but you are so rich and happy already without that present, so I wanted to see that it spread some sunshine on the lower rungs of society's ladder.
Bureau Director Bergdahl stood with his mouth agape.
Well, damn it, if that isn't the nicest thing I've heard of since my confirmation. Would you like a fig?
Oh, it must be Uncle Arthur's matchstick picture of Boden's fortress. He called yesterday to ask about it. I do so hope it was beautiful, because I told him it was.
Yes, we usually say that when they ring. Well, by Jove, one can't keep track of all the rubbish that a lot of loonies in the family send us. Thank you, my boy, for relieving us from Boden's fortress.
Karl-Bertil's journey of apology more and more turned into a regular journey of triumph. Everywhere he went, he was treated like a hero, and the joy of the families who had been stolen from when they heard that the hand-knitted woolen sweaters and specially designed paperweights had ended up with someone who needed them more knew no limits. Tycho Jonsson's embarrassment over his son's behavior was gradually replaced by a proud smile.
Yeah, well, I may not be the right person to suggest this, but all the same, I feel the atmosphere here begs me to suggest 3 cheers for my son, Karl-Bertil. Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray!
When they got home, dusk had already come, and the Christmas star lighted their way.
Our son is a kind and humble human being,
Was Tycho Jonsson's joyful message to the family when they came home.
What blessings this Christmas had in store.
Note the religious look in her eyes. This story took place in the days when Christmas was celebrated as a memorial to the birth of Christ.
Merry Christmas.